We are excited to bring on our guest for today's episode. His name is Paul Fisher, and Paul is in Canada. He runs a business in Canada that he basically funded by investing very wisely in sports cards, starting with hockey cards in the 90s. And he also invests in golf cards and knows quite a bit about basketball cards. So we're really excited to have Paul Fisher on. He's a member of the Sports Card Investment Report at nooffseason.com. We've been trading emails for a few months now, and he's always got some great insights. So we're super excited to have him on the Sports Card Strategy Show. Hey, Paul Fisher, how you doing, my man?
Doing great. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Yeah, it's great to have you.
Well, I am super, super interested in what you have to say, because when I was reading this little bio and you funded your own company through investing in sports cards, not in this bull market that we're in right now in terms of the last 3 years, tell us about that, man.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's been like this lifelong affair with cards. I was a kid and I just fell in love with stats, the box scores. I remember, my dad would bring the paper home and I probably was 4 or 5 years old and just obsessed with sports stats. Cards, the back of the card, it was just this thing I was enamored with. And I was super fortunate as a kid. I inherited a nice little vintage hockey card collection through one of my uncles. And I guess I probably started looking at values before anyone else my age was. And that was right, the start of the junk wax era, 90s upper deck. And, I'd buy those packs and rip them and trade off whatever 90s stuff I had for whatever I could get that was vintage. And I fell in love with, Bobby Orr. And, it's one of those things with cards. Sometimes in life, you come back to it. I took some time off when I went away to school. My focus was on, getting my degree. And by the tail end of university, I was back to trading cards again. I'd kind of moved away from hockey and fallen in love with late 50s baseball and early 60s baseball. And, I'd break sets. I invested a decent amount of money in Mickey Mantle stuff, and ended up, obviously the market it wasn't what it is now in vintage baseball. Some of that Mantle stuff I really wish I had kept, held on to, but I was able to do quite well with it and sell it off and, turn the proceeds of that into my first business. Again, I kind of doubled down, put all my effort into growing this business. And, I guess pre-pandemic, I just started like looking at cards again. I was like, man, I needed a hobby. I needed something to take my mind off of work. I grinded, I work hard. I needed something that brought me like kind of that childhood joy, and cards were it for me. And, it was just so interesting to watch what's happened over the last couple of years. I popped back in. I wouldn't say I'm following as closely as I did maybe at the start of the pandemic. I mean, that was crazy what happened in the market. That was fun. I mean, obviously the market went nuts. There were some huge returns that were made, and fortunate to capitalize on a couple that were just, you can't hit ROIs like that anywhere else. So the game is a little different right now. I think the industry is maturing. I'm super bullish on it long term. I've always believed that cards are an alternative investment class. I think, the market goes quite a lot higher from where we are here, but I think it's changing. I think it's becoming super sophisticated. We've seen some major changes in pricing over the last couple of years. I don't think, everyone says, could a recession be really bad for cards? I think, people make money as stock pickers in down markets as well. I think there's money to be made in cards all the time, but it is really interesting how the market is continuing to evolve. And, I've really enjoyed your content, Paul. Like, you produce, holy smokes, you put out a lot of stuff, and that's fun for me. I follow along. I love the fact that you guys are on LinkedIn and you produce a lot of content on LinkedIn, which I don't see a lot of people doing. It's great for me because I network a lot on LinkedIn, and, people in my industry, people in business here in Canada. So that's how I was kind of turned on to, what you were producing. And I enjoyed. I love the rankings, the fact that you got the website with the top 100. I know I've kind of given my input on a couple, and I just think that that's really interesting. I'm always curious to see what other people are thinking. And I love the fact that, your content focuses in on some alternative investing in, in the scheme of cards, whether it's F1 or, UFC. You guys are soccer, you guys are talking about stuff that others aren't. I think that that's awesome. And I think that's actually where the greatest opportunity in sports cards is right now.
Well, I can't tell you how much I appreciate that. You've definitely you're definitely like making this community what it is. We want to try to build this community, and so getting feedback from very, very smart people like yourself is important to me, and having you be part of things. So I appreciate you helping us create the content, and it's only going to get better. It's only going to get better. It's like, I think it's like any other business, right? Like if I probably asked you, this is a conversation for another day, another show, but like if I asked you, how was your business when you first started it in terms of, your golf business, you'd probably tell me it's a lot better now than it was back then because it's the lessons that you learned. So that's where I'm at with no off season. I'm learning my lessons and trying to make things better. So thank you for your part in that. So, hey, Paul, I wanted to jump in to some sports card specific questions after we got your background. So let's talk about the Masters, because I think, to your point, like you do have to get in the way that the market is right now. You do have to kind of lift up stones and get creative with how you can make some money and make some plays. And I think that the golf card market really is an area for people to explore. I'm compelled by the golf card market, but I have some specific questions for you. Before we get into sort of those questions and the state of the golf card market, like give us kind of the Masters recap. What did you see at the Masters that just happened? And, from a golf perspective, but also from a golf card perspective.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I would say I saw the market heat up a couple of weeks ago when there was whispers that Tiger would play. I mean, Tiger is the golf business. And there's some really great young players in the game. There's no doubt about it. But Tiger, it's scary how much he is the sport. So when there was whispers that he might play, and I think a lot of people in the industry maybe had just a bit of a feeling in the pit of their stomach that he would play. Obviously, that created a lot of hype about this year's event, right? Like, the Masters is historically, it's the largest of the four majors. Everyone looks forward to it. So many of us know the holes, the history. It's a part of it's Americana, I think, the Masters. So it's really the start of the golf season. It's the kickoff of the season for the northern climates, especially for us up here. Courses aren't open yet, but when Masters rolls around, it means golf season's close. So, with the pent-up demand for golf, I think that this was probably one of the most hyped Masters I've ever seen. And then you add the Tiger layer to things, super interesting. The fact that a new number one with Scottie Scheffler emerged before the tournament, I thought that was, that doesn't happen very often. It was a recipe for a huge amount of ratings. I haven't seen what the ratings are yet, but I would assume that it was, a huge, huge TV event. I would say it was awesome in general for golf. And, very interesting that you have a player that was just named number one in the world. His first major as number one in the world wins. That's the first time that's happened since.
Yeah, that's wild.
That's huge. And, it's really interesting with Scottie Scheffler. I wouldn't say that Scottie's like a tremendously marketable golfer. He's probably not as flashy as like maybe a Justin Thomas or a Jordan Spieth. Certainly not like a Rory if Rory would have won, or if Rory would have come from behind yesterday. If Rory would have won yesterday, that would have
he almost got his chance with that 4-putt.
That was crazy. I mean, Rory winning the Masters would have been the second biggest story other than Tiger winning. But I think we might have something pretty special with Scottie Scheffler. This guy's got a really, really strong amateur career, a lot of wins. And I think that that's one of the things when you look towards, golf is, can you win? Can you close the deal? And he's certainly got a track record where, whether he was, a teenage phenom basically in Texas, really good college player, a couple years on tour, and now he's got 4 wins in his last 6 events. This could be a really, really good player, and he could be around for a long time. And when we see a trade-off, whether it's JT, it's, Rahm, it's DJ, there's a lot of really great players right now, but no one's really cementing themselves as the winner of this generation. So you got to know how to win to be that person. And I got this feeling, and golf, I think, is a feeling thing. I think Scottie Scheffler's going to win a lot. I think, and it might be He might not have that competition. You know, it's not like the Tiger where you had Tiger and DJ and even the era before that with Faldo and Norman. This is a little softer of a generation. I'm not saying that it's not talented, but it's more widespread out. And the fact that Scottie knows how to win is a big thing.
So in terms of like state of the golf card market, like I was searching for Scottie Scheffler cards for a few weeks leading up to the Masters, and all I could find was a Sports Illustrated for Kids card. And my problem with that is, like, I won't bore everyone with the details of my personal situation, but just in general, hard to buy, grade, flip, or buy and even flip, even knowing that he's the number one in the world with a high chance of winning the Masters. What's your take on like that fact? Am I wrong? Are there other Scottie Scheffler cards? Like, is the state of the golf card market strong, or could it be a lot better just based on, like, I think what I'm trying to articulate is like a little bit of a challenge with golf card investing right now, because there seems to be a few sets by Upper Deck that have some investable cards, guys like Colin Morikawa, for example. But like, where else do you go? Like, how do you even make a play on a guy like Scottie Scheffler?
Yeah, it's tough. I wouldn't say the golf card market is super strong. I mean, I think that there's definitely cult collectors out there that are, you know, extremely well versed on, you know, what to buy, rare stuff, whether it's rare autos, inserts, parallels, whatever. Those people have made a lot of money over the last little while because they've been able to pick off really great investments. But in terms of, you know, the overall state of the market, I would say it's probably one of the weakest. You know, obviously, like F1's very, very strong right now. I think UFC's super strong. I would probably put golf like more along the lines of like WWE, probably in that category. Maybe a little bit stronger because of the whole Tiger element, but I wouldn't say that there's tremendous opportunities to like buy Scottie Scheffler rookie cards and, you know, make a ton of money. I don't think that that's a real play. Now, to your point about Morikawa, I'm surprised by the prices with Morikawa. Like, they've really shot up, and, you know, maybe that's, I don't know, he's marketable. I don't know how marketable Scottie Scheffler is. Morikawa is certainly very marketable. I'm surprised at how much that's priced into the market already. Given when I look at where some rare Tiger stuff sits, I think, man, like, the Tiger stuff is really, really, really undervalued. I would say the Tiger market in general is, it's picking up. It's heating up. You can feel it. You see it, whether it's eBay, you know, PWCC. Tiger market's strong, but I would say in general, if I'm talking about the overall market, fairly weak. Tiger market extremely strong. If not, you know, it's picking up. It's, you know, now that he's playing again, it's starting to strengthen. Now, the one thing to consider about golf is it's not just about cards. There's also a collectible market. We just saw Tiger's iron sell for $5 million over the weekend. I would say golf memorabilia is a very strong market. Like, it's a little bit different, and it's, you know, centered in and around some of the history of the game. Golf is a very historical game. And, you know, I would say like a comp like $5 million for a set of irons that Tiger played, that's really strong. I'm really surprised to see that number. I thought maybe $1.5 million, something like that. That price went crazy. So that's really interesting, whether that lifts the whole memorabilia market. Maybe that increases, you know, some Palmer and Nicklaus stuff. I don't know. I think it certainly strengthens the Tiger card market, though.
Yeah. So what about if Tiger doesn't keep rolling? You know, like, we're obviously and have been at the tail end of Tiger's career for maybe 5-6 years. You know, he's kind of holding on to still being in the tour, but, you know, is there a point where he moves into the I mean, I don't know a ton about golf, and you're going to see my expertise wane here, but isn't there like a elder tour that he could potentially go into, or is he just going to retire from golf completely with the injuries?
I don't think so. I mean, I think there's this, he's chasing Jack's record. It's, and you know, the reality is he might not win 18 major championships, but he can tie jack with another Masters if he gets his sixth. He could become the oldest major winner with another win at Augusta, or the oldest to win at Augusta. I think he proved that he can play. I mean, the fact that he came back from such a devastating injury after, 17 months or 16 months, whatever it was. I mean, we're talking about one of probably the most incredible feats in sports history. The fact that he was able to do that. What I think is very interesting, though, is like Augusta is a golf course that he knows like the back of his hand. And the reality is, I think there's a lot of people in the industry that are saying to themselves, like, he's going to win again. It's part of his story. And maybe he doesn't, but the story is not being done told. I think he's got this internal fight. He's the closest athlete we've ever seen to Jordan in terms of that will to win. Maybe the most dominant. Like, I mean, I don't know, going back to the early 2000s, there was no athlete that was more dominant in a short period of time than Tiger Woods. He's got his young son, who's a really good player. I got this sneaky suspicion that Tiger's sticking around because that means something to him. He wants to see he wants his son to see him win more. He's going to come back again and play for sure at St. Andrews, which is, his favorite golf course. It's walkable. Tiger's still the best iron player in the world. He might not drive the ball as good as some of the other players on tour, but he's the best iron player in the world. I think he can win it. I honestly think he can win the British Open, and he'll be selective in terms of the events that he wins, but I think that he's going to have a serious chance to win majors over the next 5 years still.
Okay.
So what would be the Tiger Woods cards to buy right now? And what would be the play? Because I know, like, long-term, I already wholeheartedly believe in what you're saying, and you're kind of validate you coming on board and providing me a lot of your insights on golf and on Tiger specifically. I know you wanted to kind of compare him to some of the GOATs from the other sports like Brady, Jordan, Gretzky. Maybe give us, and you mentioned the memorabilia sale of his clubs going for $5 million. Bring it home for us in terms of like what cards to buy and why, and then like what would the plays be? Like would it be a bad play to buy a Tiger card now and then sell it before the British Open this year? Would it be a bet, or would it be fine? Or, I would assume you're going to say hold long term, but maybe tell us kind of what your overall Tiger Woods golf cards plays are.
Yeah, I mean, it's without giving it away too much, and certainly don't want to come across, pumping the stuff that I've been putting money into. Like, the reality is it's all about scarcity with Tiger. He's, his rookie card's got 900 auto. It's numbered to 900. So it's pretty scarce to begin with. That's the SP Authentic. There's a SP Authentic Gold that's numbered to 100. Like, I look at that SP Authentic Gold that numbered to 100 and I say, okay, in the grand scheme of things, could that go to the world where a Jordan, 86 Fleer PSA 10 selling at that 285 or 250? I mean, it kind of fluctuates between 250 and 300. Based on, scarcity alone, I think that card can go there. And that's one of those situations where a rising tide lifts all boats. But for Tiger, I mean, the reality is you've got a mass printed Upper Deck rookie, and then everything else is relatively scarce in the grand scheme of things. It's hard to get into the market. You've got a 9.5 of the SP Authentic numbered to 900 rookie card trading at 15, 17 grand right now. There's not a lot of people in that world saying, well, hey, I'm going to buy a $15,000 golf card. The grand scheme of things, though, when you look at the scarcity, there might not be a better investment out there when you comp that to something like, what else is trading at 15 grand right now or in that ballpark? A Brady Bowman Chrome rookie card. And how many of those are out there in terms of print? A Steph Tops, and Steph's probably a bad example. Steph's pretty low scarcity. Maybe a Gretzky PSA 8 rookie card. They've been trending upwards. What's more scarce? I mean, that Tiger card, for what we are looking at as an all-time GOAT, it's cheap. But the face value of the card is expensive. So, I mean, I think there's a huge amount of room upwards in the scarce rookie cards, in particular the SP Authentic Gold. I really believe there's a day where it goes to $250,000 plus, especially for PSA 10. Obviously, all the lower grades will rise as a result of that. And then I think that probably the number to 900 moves into the 30-40 range as a result of the gold going up. It's interesting. I think with Tiger, the Exquisite market is, Upper Deck released the Exquisite Golf Collection. It was 2013, 2014. I mean, Exquisite's gone through the roof, right? Like, I mean, it separated itself as a brand, like a lot, I think, in the last year, or at least so it feels so to me. I think that stuff's really interesting, especially when you start comparing it against like, Jordan or the LeBron Exquisite auto market. Like, again, it's a relative and they're very, 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 very scarce. And, it's one of those things, like scarcity always seems to rise to the top. I think the insert world with Tiger is really interesting. There's his Masters collection had a lot of like low print stuff that could be very interesting. There's the Jambalaya card out there. You've got the PMG card, the Precious Metal Gems, which, we're seeing huge run-ups in some of this rare 90s insert parallel. There's a couple of them out there in the Tiger world, but they're not many. So what does that mean, for someone that's maybe not interested in a rookie card? Well, where are you going to put cash? Well, the nostalgia of 90s inserts is huge. And those Tiger inserts I think they're super, the eye appeal is really high and they're super low print run. They might be made for Upper Deck employees, but they're cool cards. And I could see those. I think there's huge, huge, huge upsides in those cards right now.
That's a great call. I think you're onto something with this. And this is one of the reasons why I'm really happy to have you on the show. Many reasons why I'm happy. That's one of them. And then the thing, I mean, just to kind of talk about the Auto 900 2001 SP Authentic Auto. I mean, that's interesting because the last sale that I see on eBay of that card was August 15th, 2021, PSA 10 last sale.
Yep.
For $41,600. And you mentioned a Beckett 9.5 for 17. So that's an interesting play right there. Kendall and I talked about that earlier on this episode, where if you can cross over a true gem Beckett over into a PSA 10,
yep,
that's a pretty big immediate return on investment just based on the last sale. You never know what the next one's going to sell for, but we have seen things like that happen with the Jordan 86 Fleer. People talking about doing that and being successful doing that. So I think there's definitely a lot of good stuff there in the Tiger market. So, Paul, while we still have you, I mean, we definitely want to try to hit a few other things. So emerging players, talk to us about you. We've already talked a little bit about Morikawa and Scheffler, but are there any other guys that we should keep an eye on in terms of who's to follow, but also who has cards and what those cards are that we should take a look at?
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's a bit of a vintage market as well. And it's not super exciting. Jack Nicklaus and Palmer, and, there's some stuff, Bobby Jones stuff that's, very, very, very valuable from the 30s and earlier. In terms of the emerging market though, like my eye is still somewhat on Rory as that number 2. I think Phil, obviously, with like kind of the recent stuff in the media, maybe not in the most stable of places, in terms of street cred right now. So probably staying away from Phil's stuff for the time being. But, massive story if Rory wins. Obviously, you could see like the energy in and around yesterday's final round because Rory was making a charge was huge. If he was to get a green jacket to claim that, to have all of the majors, that's a big story. He definitely moves the needle. He's the second largest player in the world outside of Tiger. I think that there's maybe a bit of a market with Rory with some rare inserts. Like he's got a Precious Metal Gems card as well, which I think, that's super interesting, especially because the Tiger cards moved up so much that I look at the Rory and I think, that's cheap. If he wins another couple majors, that's a card that could go to 10 G's. But, and Rory's got a couple of exquisite autos and things like that. He's probably the one I'm looking at. In terms of emerging players, obviously Scheffler, no cards in the market. Brooks Koepka. I don't even think Brooks outside of the Sports Illustrated card has a rookie card yet. I mean, it'll be interesting to see what comes, is there a new product? Would Fanatics, potentially buy Upper Deck? And could that mean, more golf cards hit the market? There's just not a ton of production out there. So we're not seeing rookie cards with some of these players like a John Rahm. So it's really hard to say. But I would say in terms of emerging, there's a couple names, Justin Thomas, John Rahm, DJ, Morikawa, they're all right there. before I think they really start to have any sort of serious value, you're going to have to see more majors though, or more wins.
Mm.
Yeah, I think that like Fanatics or Upper Deck making, Fanatics would have to acquire Upper Deck, but
Yep.
with or without Fanatics, Upper Deck making more releases, I think would be a huge step in the right direction for the golf card market, because you could start to see some of the F1 and UFC momentum, just because having all those players that you just mentioned actually have legitimate cards. Upper Deck typically has affordable prices on their hobby boxes. So to go in and be first to the market on a lot of those, I could see those, we're making this up, this hypothetical Upper Deck hobby box that comes in the future. I think would be great, and would be something that I would jump into, as long as there's like a, look for an auto, look for a memorabilia card within the hobby box, those kinds of things. So
yeah, and especially with Tiger, I mean, like, we'll really see what happens over the next 5 years. But Upper Deck released a Masters collection with Tiger with some really cool stuff in it. There's an exquisite rookie patch. I would do anything to have that card. Like, I think it's just absolutely gorgeous. It, the photo on it, and obviously this is like a historic card. It's the LeBron rookie card version. Like, I still remember that day that he beat Rocco in the playoff on the Monday. And like, I will remember that moment for the rest of my life. That is the type of card that I would lock away and have for the rest of my life. I don't look at it as an investment. That would be like a personal thing. So if there was more product that came along that I think would maybe, like, I don't know, resonate with people. Tiger means something to people, like, especially this comeback and the will to come back. Like, I think that's, sometimes people are, they connect with an athlete. I think a lot of people connected with Kobe, a lot of people connected with Jordan. I'd say, Tiger now, this human element that you're seeing, that could drive hysteria if there was a really, really good product. We just haven't seen it from the manufacturers.
Yeah. Last note on golf, and then we want to move into some quick hockey before we let you go. If there is, I'm going to do some more research on Tiger's son, because if there's some sort of Bronny James moment about to happen in the future with Tiger and his son, like there will be with LeBron and his son, that will definitely be something to keep an eye out for with his cards. So I'm glad you mentioned that. All right. So in terms of like the Canadian sports market, including hockey, and even a guy that plays for the Raptors, who I'll let you mention. Why don't you give us kind of an overview of like your top 5 sort of Canadian market investments right now, and why?
That's a good question. I mean, I think the Canadian market, I would say the Toronto sports teams maybe get overlooked a little bit. I don't know why, but it just seems like values of Toronto athletes have maybe not popped to some extent. I mean, if we're talking the overall Canadian market, Connor McDavid's number 1 for sure. I mean, we're looking at, and by the eyeball test, I go by all eyeball tests, this is the most talented hockey player I've seen since Wayne Gretzky. There's no doubt about it. He is, and the reality is the pandemic is, the shortened seasons and stuff like that has hurt his probably long-term chance of catching Gretzky on all-time points. But this is a player that is going to put up staggering numbers in a career. Is he going to win as many cups as Gretzky? Maybe not. Winning a cup is very challenging, and the game of hockey is quite a lot different now. But I would say in terms of the grand scheme of number 1 opportunity, Connor McDavid he might be the most dominant athlete in his sport of anyone in any sport right now. He's that good. So I see him as number 1 in terms of the overall Canadian market. Number 2, I think Vladi Guerrero Jr. This is a very talented hitter. I don't know. I mean, I don't know.
You see what he did yesterday to a baseball?
Like, this is a
stupid
Manny Ramirez type hitter. I don't think he's a Barry Bonds like hitter, because Bonds was a 5-tool athlete. He was wickedly talented. I'm not saying Vladdy's not the same. He's just not he's not a very good defensive player, right? He might be a DH at some point in his career. He might even be a DH at some point this year. He's an unbelievable hitter. And when you look at things like, I think a metric that's really interesting to look at is like OPS plus, Babe Ruth, like some of these great hitters are leading a statistic like that. Vladi led last year. And I think Vladdy's going to be the best hitter in baseball this year. Being a great hitter is usually a really good thing for card values. I think he's undervalued given the grand scheme of just being a Toronto athlete and probably not getting as much exposure in the U.S. media market as some of the other players that are, the Tatises, Acuna, guys like that. So he's my clear number 2. Austin Matthews is clear number 3. Austin Matthews is the best hockey player I've ever seen play for the Toronto Maple Leafs. I don't know if the Leafs are going to win a cup. If they do in the next couple of years, you might as well anoint him King of Canada. That would be like the most influential thing that any athlete, and he's an American athlete, which is interesting as well. But he is by far the most talented player to ever put the jersey on. And the Leafs are everything in a city like Toronto and really in the province of Ontario. I think there's massive upside. I mean, I look at Austin Matthews eyeball test. I say that's Mario Lemieux. So Connor McDavid's the Wayne Gretzky of this generation. Austin Matthews is Mario Lemieux. So put that in the grand scheme of, respectively in terms of cards and values. He's never going to be Connor McDavid value, but he's going to be number 2 in the overall grand scheme of the hockey market. 4, I mean, Scottie Barnes is one hell of a basketball player. In terms of what, the impact as a rookie, win shares as a rookie, I think he's 3rd highest all time behind Jordan and Bird. This guy's going to be really good. I don't know, again, if he has the style of game to be John Morant or, Devin Booker. I mean, look at Giannis. Giannis doesn't play a particularly attractive style of basketball. And I mean, he's in Milwaukee. I wouldn't say Milwaukee is like a front and center market in the US either. I think Giannis cards are wickedly undervalued, and there's a lot of reasons why, but he is the best basketball player on the planet right now. Scottie is going to be a top 15 player in the league in terms of impact. Is he marketable? I don't know, but I think that the value of the cards could go up quite a bit, especially, autos and RPAs and things like that. And then fifth's a tough one. I mean, I look at the Canadian national soccer team as, it just qualified for the Olympics for the first time. Alfonso Davies, probably the best player at his position in the world.
Now we're talking, Paul. Let's go.
I've recognized my friends really getting into soccer. I mean, I grew up playing soccer. It's probably my best sport playing as a kid. Soccer is picking up steam big time in Canada, just like basketball is. It's, we've got a widely multicultural city here in Toronto. Soccer is wickedly popular. Like TFC is huge. So then, to see what the Canadian national team's done, and like, this is a good soccer team. Like, I wouldn't be shocked if they go to the round of 16. It's a very good team. And Davies is the best player in his position in the world. Now, I don't know how, I guess he's a wing back or something like that. He'll score the odd goal, but I don't know how particularly, marketable that position is. But very likely going to go down as, if not already, the greatest soccer player in the history of the country.
Yeah, and I think this is great insights for all sports card investors because, Americans tend to overlook Canada a lot of the time. And so these are, I think, arbitrage opportunities with every single name that you've mentioned for not only the fact that they're just legitimate in their own right, but because there is such a strong fan base in Canada for them. And so Alfonso Davies is someone I was wondering about specifically because of his position. So you addressed that for me, and I don't disagree with you at all on Scottie Barnes, on Vlad. They're high on our sports card investment report, and great stuff. Kendall, do you have anything else for Paul?
No, I would just say in terms of the Davies thing, Bayern previously had a left back that moved up the field a little bit. What's his name? I'm blanking on it right now. Doesn't matter. He's from Austria. But anyway, they previously have had a player very much like him. They ended up moving up the field, and I think now plays for Madrid. So I think he's got the profile. He doesn't necessarily have to score tons of goals to be a threat. And I think he's definitely, especially with him coming from the MLS, his market here in the United States and Canada, North America specifically, his cards could go stupid, basically, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, just one more thing on Davies. Like, I've learned a lot about soccer card investing over the last year, and I think that there's like two really simple factors, more so than any other sport. And one is, do they have investable cards
Right.
when they're super young? And two is, what's their projected playing time? And Kendall and I hit on that in this episode, Paul, before you joined. And there's just a lot of U.S. men's national team guys that are in the same mix, the same discussion. We don't really know who's going to play. And so I think if you can say, like, here's a North American team with like a player who's going to play, and I know they've got Jonathan David too. I'm not sure how you feel about him, but in terms of Alphonso Davies, it's like if you told a soccer card investor, like, this guy's going to play and he has investable cards, and that could make a stronger case than a lot of the U.S. men's national team guys, unfortunately. But that could be an arbitrage opportunity. I like it.
Yeah, you need a couple big cards to move the market. I'm a huge believer in, like, that rising tide. You need that card that can be worth a ton of money to raise the lower end stuff. I think that obviously that creates more profile in terms of the overall investment opportunity. But I don't know about the Davies market. I mean, I know there's a couple gold parallels and stuff like that. I don't think there's a huge amount of auto stuff out there. It'll be interesting. I don't know if there's the firepower at the high end to raise all the lower end stuff. That would be probably my biggest concern. But we'll see,
Yeah, that's well said.
There's Canadians that are going to buy that stuff. If there was rare stuff on the market right now, whether it's a number to 10 or something like that, it's a good buy. There's no doubt. I just don't think you're going to see insane pricing on autos and things like that can raise the bar as much as it needs to be raised.
Yeah, I mean, I just think, like, for example, Jonathan David, like, I could be wrong, but like, I've only found just the tops now, and like, and that's unfortunate. But hey, guys, thank you so much for being on the show. Paul, you were awesome. Kendall, you were great as always. I'm super excited that we're building this community, and thanks to both of you for creating content with me, and thanks everybody for watching and listening to the Sports Card Strategy Show. We're going to have more of both of these guys coming up as part of the nooffseason.com content network. And just a quick reminder that check out the Sports Card Investment Report at nooffseason.com. You can save 20% at checkout if you use the promo code NOOFFSEASON. And special thanks to marketmoversapp.com by Sports Card Investor. You can actually get your first month for $1, only $1, by using the promo code NOOFFSEASON, all lowercase there. We're about to run out of time. Thanks everybody, and have a great day.